Good morning, everybody. I would like to welcome you to our lab debate, Mangrove Contributions to People. My name is Dorothy Fischer, and I'm going to run you through the session or the show today. I know many of you feel probably a Zoom fatigue after 1 year of pandemic, so I'm all the more grateful that you've made it to our session today, and I hope we're going to have an interesting debate. As Philippe has already announced in his moderation, this session is organized by the IRD, the French National Research Institute for Sustainable Development, based in Marseille. The IRD is involved in a variety of scientific research projects, basically dealing with global challenges such as health, equality, or climate change. They work worldwide, and they always work with partners in the field, so local partners, and their aim is to actually contribute with their recommendations and their scientific research results to policy making. So there's a strong link between the researchers and the policy makers. And I think also our session here today is in the spirit. We're very happy to have 3 experts lined up with us today and to listen to their research and their results. But we also hope that with this debate and with this lab session, we can contribute to policy making in the future and make sure that the mangroves are protected and that we also protect the local communities in the future. So I would like to welcome, on the one hand, Marie-Christine CORMIER-SALEM. She is senior researcher at the IRD. She's also the director of the Acropolis Foundation in Montpellier, which deals with scientific cooperation and research in the area of agriculture and sustainable development. Christine mainly focuses on research on how local strategies face globalization. And she also deals with gender equality, environmental justice, and climate change adaptation. So she will tell us a lot about the mangrove trees today and why they're very important. Then on the other side of the world, we have Tri Van Dang. He's director of the Research Institute for Climate Change at Tho University in Vietnam. He mainly focuses on holistic research and solutions in the area of integrated water management and the impacts of climate change on agriculture, mangroves, and aquaculture systems. So also welcome, Tri. And our third speaker is from Africa, Wanja NYINGI. She's the head of Ichthyology. I'm sorry, this is really a tongue twister, at the National Museums of Kenya. Basically, Ichthyology is the branch of zoology that is devoted to the study of fish. So Wanja is our fish expert, and she's also the coordinator of the Kenya Wetlands Biodiversity Research Group, and she mainly works with local communities. So she really has this local view on when it comes to the conservation of ecosystems and biodiversity. Our lab session, as you know, is classified under the Seascapes and Coastal Areas topic of this year's European Development Days. But obviously, we're also going to touch on a lot of related topics, especially when, indigenous people and local communities. We're going to deal with mangrove trees, as you know. This is the topic of the session and the title. Maybe some of you will ask yourself, okay, what does that mean? What is a mangrove tree or a mangrove plant? I have to admit, I had to look this up when I prepared for the session, and we're also going to show you some examples and some pictures so that you can really have a better idea of what we're talking about in this session today. And we're going to talk about the importance of these mangrove trees when it comes to mitigating climate change, how we can protect them, what are the current challenges when it comes to deforestation or pollution, especially also for the local communities that are living in those areas where the mangrove trees grow, for example, in the tropical coastal areas around the world. We're going to show you a map of that as well. And the leading question for our session today is really, how can we bring it all together? Because we know that sometimes what is good for the planet is not necessarily good for the people and the other way around. So I think this is really the basic question or leading question for our session today. And I'm really looking forward to hearing the experts and what they have to say, their recommendations also for the policy making. We know, especially when it comes to vulnerable groups such as women and indigenous people, this is a tricky question to find the right balance. And I look forward to the case studies from Asia and Africa in this context today. So I think this is enough of an introduction. You know what is the main stake for our session, and I'd like to hand over to Marie-Christine, and she will present you. Actually, she's not available. This is a problem because she had actually the introductory presentation with the images of the mangrove trees. Can we put them up all the same? Do we have her presentation? We can at least, I mean, I'm not the expert, but at least I know the pictures that are in that presentation. Can we have her PowerPoint presentation? So Marie-Christine is not at all online. This is a pity because she was our lead expert. Okay, no problem. So here you can see on the map where the mangrove trees grow basically in the tropical zones around the world, in Latin America, in Africa, and in Asia. So you see the different coastal lines, and you see some pictures of the ecosystems around it, the flora and the fauna in those areas. Maybe you can go to the next one. Exactly. If any of the other experts would like to already take over and explain why the mangrove tree is so important, I would appreciate it because I'm not a content expert. Tree or Wanja, would you like to take over and explain a little bit more why the mangrove is such an important plant, tree or ecosystem? I think you're better at that than I am. Yes.
All right. So I guess I can have a bit. Actually, I was not prepared to. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yes, all right. All right. So actually, the mangrove forest is very much important to support the society and also human being. There are, from the slide here, we have 4 important services from the mangrove forest. So the first one is the regulation. With the mangrove forest, we can have the coastal area against the storm surge. Like I am living in the Vietnamese Mekong Delta. In the Delta, we don't have that big storm, but in other area, we do have big storm. And with the mangrove forest, the storms will, the power of storms will be minimized and have to protect the entire area. In addition, we also the mangrove forest. Sorry, can you go back to the slide, please? All right, right. The mangrove forest is also important to regulate the flows. Actually, for example, myself, I'm working a lot with the geomorphology of the river system. So the mangrove system have to maintain the sediment from the upstream to support building the delta, and also the mangrove forest also keep the sediment floods from the sea down yet into the delta as well. The waste treatment, I'm not sure how good the mangrove forest help to treat the waste, but actually we can feel that like with the mangrove forest, we can see the waste from the delta and also from the sea accumulated furthermore in the mangrove forest, and it caused the problems for the livelihood of local people and also caused the bad impacts on the environment as well. In addition, another service is about the support. So the mangrove forest have to purify the air and the water. As I mentioned before, the air and the water in the mangrove forest is very can be treated well, and the mangrove forest, with the mangrove forest, the carbon can be accumulated when the tree is built up. The carbon could be accumulated and stored there, so that the carbon in the outside environment could be released, could be reduced, and also it have to maintain the nutrient cycle. And also, with the mangrove forest, we have a large amount of different species, and so the biodiversity is something very much important in the mangrove forest.
But Tree, can I just interrupt you, can you just explain maybe why the mangrove tree is so special when it comes to, I mean, we understand this is a plant, this is a tree, every tree is important when it comes to climate change and climate mitigation, but why is this tree so special? I understood, I think it grows very fast, is that right? So it's very good, it's a bit like the bamboo tree, is that correct? Or is it, can you just explain to us a little bit more why this tree is so special? Oh, I can see, was there Marie?
All right, Marie here, Marie-Christine here. So I would like to turn it over back to Marie-Christine.
Is Marie there now? Marie-Christine? I'm not sure if we saw her and she appeared and disappeared. She must have an unstable connection. Marie-Christine, are you there now?
Yes.
This is the good news. So I'd like you to take over and explain to us why the mangrove tree is so special. And you must have a very unstable connection.
Yes, I got.
Can we listen? Can you hear us? Are we losing you again? Because if we're losing you again, I'd like to bring the question back. Maybe Wanja can also help us and tell us more about the characteristics of those mangrove trees, why they're so special.
Well, all right, I can. Mangroves are very important because they buffer the fresh water from the marine water. So you asked how quickly they grow. Well, there are very many species of mangroves, but the average is up to 2 years. However, mangroves are very, very threatened because of their demand for wood products and also because of coastal deterioration. But mangroves are really, really important, not just locally to prevent, to protect the coasts from effects of climate, etc. Yeah, sorry.
So I just heard that we have Marie-Christine back, but without video. So she can actually take over. But thanks very much, Wanja, for this introduction. I think it's important for us non-experts to really understand why the mangrove trees are so important. I mean, obviously, they're important because they grow a lot around the world. So a bit like, I mean, the Amazonas is also a wood area or a tree area that is very important. So obviously, we have to protect all those areas. But I really like to see what are the characteristics of those plants or trees that are special. I will hand over now to Marie-Christine. I hope she's there.
Yes, I am here. Very sorry for these technical problems. And maybe I would like to emphasize that mangrove is not only a plant socio-ecosystem, it is really a place, a livelihood place. It was my previous, and I will say to with diverse components and to do a good recipe of mangroves, we need muddy flats, warm sea water, forest, plant species, but also animal species, but also uses and users and use values and no use values.
Very good. Would you like to continue your presentation, Marie-Christine?
Yes, if you hear me, is it all right?
Yes, we can hear you well. Maybe we can have the slide back, please.
Yes,
please. In the background, because we can go to the second. Do you want to go on the first slide again, or you just continue on the second?
No. We can go on and the second slide. And I would like to emphasize the fact that there is a radical changing perception from dangerous and healthy marshes, mangroves in the 1960s and now considered as a multifunction socio-ecosystem with multiple contributions. And since a few years, there is maybe an over-evaluation of its role as carbon sequestration sink and leading to vast campaign of reforestation. And as you see on this slide, there is multiple services, regulation, support, provision, and culture. We have not to forget the culture values associated to mangrove. And the last slide, I would like to address the question of the uncertain dynamic of mangrove. There has been a decline during the 1980 till the 90s, at least a loss of 20% or 25% in 25 years. And the key drivers of this loss is climate change, and especially drought, and the mismanagement and overuses of the resources of mangrove, and notably the boom of shrimp farms all over the world, in Asia, in Latin America, and in last extent in Africa. And this is as that led to rehabilitate mangrove, but in fact there is a contrasted dynamic according to the spatial scale and time span. And in fact, mangrove is a rich, diverse and very robust system that can recover spontaneously or naturally if the pedoclimato-hydrological conditions are good. Thank you and I will let the floor to my other colleagues.
Great. Thank you very much, Marie-Christine. I also liked the fact that you underlined this is really an ecosystem. It's more than a plant, it's more than a tree, it's a whole system around it. So I look forward now to listening to our next speaker, Tree, who will talk about the delta in the Mekong Delta in Vietnam, and tell us about the ecosystem that is under threat there, it seems. So Tree, the floor is yours, and I think you also have a short presentation.
May I have a slide, please? All right. So I'm Trey from Tho University of Vietnam. The Tho University is right at the middle of the Mekong Delta. Maybe some of you don't know where the Mekong Delta is, but you may know about the Delta. The Mekong. So the Mekong Delta is right at the bottom of the Mekong River system, and right at the coast of the delta, we have back to the fishery, we have the vast area of the mangrove forest, but even the development, human resources development, society development, the mangrove forest has been cut for different purposes. As you have learned from Marie-Christine, that it has multifunctional. The mangrove forest is a multifunctional ecosystem. So now like in the delta, we have the intensive agricultural development and also intensive agricultural development. So the mangrove forest are under great threat. And it more details the mangrove forest. Even though it is very much helpful in terms of environmental functions, but in society, in almost society, local people want to because they cannot get a lot of benefits out of this mangrove forest. So they cut it down for different other purposes, like they turn the mangrove forest into the rice field, they turn the mangrove forest into the shrimp pond, etc. So it causes problems for the mangrove forest as well. And apart from that, we have the delta, the global delta in general, and the Mekong Delta in specific, are under great threat for the changes of the environment and of the climate change. So the sea level rise and also the wave changes also cause the problems for the mangroves in the delta as well. So in short, the mangrove forest is a functional ecosystem. However, it is hard to be managed sustainably because it can provide services for different stakeholders, different group of people, but not all of them protect or behave well to the mangrove system. So back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Tree. This was interesting. So it's really also about the use of this ecosystem and to strike the balance that we should all become vegans, probably. We should stop eating shrimp, or at least fish a little bit less. This brings us also to our situation in Africa, about the local communities and how they actually live with the mangrove ecosystems and how they use them, and how can we find this balance? Wanja, do you have some recommendations in this area?
You could project my slides.
Yes, we also have slides for Wanja. Can you please put them up? Oops. It's coming, I was told. Okay, good.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, I'll just begin as the slides come up. As you know, mangroves are important for all the services they provide, both goods and others, as Marie has explained. In our context, I hope the slides are coming up. Yes, there you go. In our context, I will speak about the Tana River Delta in Kenya. And as you may have heard even from Vietnam, deltas are very, very important wetlands. They're floodplains where fresh water from the river empties itself into the sea. And therefore, as a dynamic waterscape, it is important to ensure that connectivity is maintained. And by this, we mean connectivity between the fresh water and the salt water. In this area is where we find a lot of our mangroves within our coastal area in the Indian Ocean. Next slide. Some of the things that have brought a lot of the threat to connectivity include dams. So in Kenya, you can see the map there, we have already 5 dams on our major river, the Tana River, which leads to the Tana River Delta and empties itself into the Indian Ocean. Before the dam, as you can see on the upper part of the slide, the floodplain itself, the delta itself, was a lot more expansive, meaning there was a larger area covered by water, and therefore a larger area covered by the mangroves, the forests, and other ecosystems found in deltas. After the dams, you can see how much it reduced, and therefore this has had a lot of repercussions on the deltas themselves, but also on mangroves, because when you reduce the amount of fresh water getting into the coast, into the ocean, then you have ocean water protruding into the fresh water. This is a threat to the mangroves, and also a threat to all the mangrove biodiversity that exists. So for this, we need to think of nature-based solutions. A lot of solutions that come from counties and people trying to get back their fresh water involve digging of the channels, trying to see if they can be able to get the water to flow back to them. These are not sustainable. And what we believe is that restoration of mangroves are very important to help reduce salinity of the areas already highly saline, and also to stabilize the soils. Next slide. In order to work in these deltas, you need to have a lot of interdisciplinarity. And for the last almost 10 years through IRD, we have had a project with local communities and also with national implementers and scientists to involve diverse disciplines, from fisheries, from botanists, anthropologists, wetland experts, climatologists, to try and understand this delta, what is happening in it, what are the trajectories towards preservation, and therefore, how can nature-based solutions be applied and the best way in which they can be applied. Next slide. What is important to consider, as Marie said, could you click again? I think there's a photo that's probably missing. Yes, as we've heard, that deltas are not, mangroves are not just trees, but rather an ecosystem, and therefore an ecosystem where people live using those ecosystems. It is important for us to involve communities. Communities are the people that live there. They're the people that are users of that ecosystem. They're the fishermen, they're the harvesters of timber, they're different people, including the people who use herbal medicines and harvest these. We have to involve them in understanding the importance of restoring this. So there are ongoing projects trying to restore wetlands, but also restore mangroves. However, these projects will be bound to fail if the people do not become the custodians, because as we've always tried to say is that, conservation has a reason, not just the global reason of sequestrating carbon and trying to restore biodiversity, but also to ensure that livelihoods of those who live there are sustained. So conservation must not just involve people, but also must benefit them. Therefore, it must be for them. Next slide. So currently there is a lot of projects going on along the Indian Ocean, and we've had many partners from the EU working with Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, and Madagascar on a current project that we are calling WIODA, the Western Indian Ocean Deltas Exchange and Research Network, whereby we try to bring in all this interdisciplinarity, all the information and data and science that has been going on in our teams to help now restore ecosystems, to help now advise and fill the science policy gaps. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wanja. That was really very, very interesting. And I wrote down a few key messages, among others, that conservation must involve and benefit people, so both. And this interdisciplinarity that you're actually recommending, so a multi-stakeholder approach. We cannot do it only from one field. It's good to have these different points of views. So one of my questions now to all of you would be, we've seen these different realities in Asia and Africa. So are these approaches and these recommendations actually applying to all of these areas around the world? Is it the same for Asia, for Latin America and Africa, or are there any differences? Maybe Wanja can react directly, and then we can give the floor again to Tree and also to Marie. What would you say? Is it the same situation? We really have to work with the local communities. And what are the main recommendations? How to do this, even how to raise awareness? I guess it's not that easy. It's easily said, but it's not. I mean, even to reach those communities, to establish a good communication with them, and not, having them feel we are telling them what to do. Obviously, we want them to own these kind of projects and connecting with their contacts and their nature surrounding nature. So, Wanja, would you like to react straight away, and then we give the floor to Tree again to see what his point of view from Asia?
Yes, from our experience is that awareness already exists. Communities are the front line to the impacts of climate change and biodiversity loss that is already confronting them. Therefore, awareness is not the main issue here. I believe that what is happening at the source right now on the ground is that we have a lot of science and very little implementation. And when I say involving communities, I mean that many people and many projects right now, including several funded by the EU, look at communities in a manner that is top-down. They talk about bottom-up approaches, but when you invite communities into your projects, it's not sound and it's not sustainable. So I urge that the donors and the project implementers ask themselves crucial questions such as, has the person been chosen, the group, the organization implementing this project, are they an honest broker? Meaning, are they truly involving communities, or are they taking photographs to show, oh, here we have communities planting trees? Are the communities capable? If you went into that community, and trust me, they're not large villages, and asked any one of them, are you aware of this project? Are you carrying out any mangrove restoration? They should be able to answer. They should be able to tell you, yes, we have been involved. In fact, we understand why we need to do this. We are protecting this area. We are actually doing this to restore the fisheries. We want to restore our forests. These are sacred places for us. But in many cases, this is not happening. So I would urge that people look at what is needed on the ground. Involving communities is not after you have written the project, but during the time that you begin to do your reconnaissance, letting yourself know who are these people, what are their customs, what are their management options, how have they been working in the past, what are the governance of ecosystems in the past and in the present, and how can we restore their connection with nature.
Very good point. I mean, I think this really profound needs assessment and participatory approach from the beginning of the project is a very good point that we can recall from your statement. So, Tri, tell us about Asia. Are these recommendations similar that you would like to bring across?
I must say yes, similar. But anyway, so let me add some more information. Actually, I fully agree with Wanja about the community approach. About the, as she said, the awareness has been raised already, but how the scientific project could bring benefit to the local community is something very much important. So I fully agree with that. And she also mentioned about the governance. I think it is something we need to focus on as well, because different countries has different way to manage the mangrove forest, and each country has its own problem. So the government need to work together with scientists and also with the national and the international scientists, and also with local people, really to realize where are the bottlenecks, why the mangrove forest is being degraded. So we need the local government and the central government need to learn from the science and from the reality to practice the effective way to manage the mangrove forest. As I learned from, at least from Vietnam, people realize that all of them realize that mangrove forest is important, but still mangrove forest is not well managed at the moment.
So very good point. So the governance, the management systems are something that need to be improved and that we need to work on. I also hear from both of you, the connection between science and policymakers has to be strengthened. And I think this is, I said that in my introduction, this is the spirit of our session. And I think this is really a message we would like to bring across. I'd like to give the floor also to Marie-Christine again now. I hope you're still there since I don't see you. Can you also tell us what are your recommendations when it comes to the protection of mangrove ecosystems and the connection with the local communities?
Yes, please. Can I have the slides?
Exactly. You prepared some slides, like summarizing.
Yes, the first slide. Yeah, please, to illustrate the first slide that which policies for whom, and there are a lot of incentives to stop mangrove degradation. And I give you a few examples regarding the protection of areas, the sanctuarization of areas, the protection of emblematic species such as turtle, caimans in Guyana, or the tiger of Bengal. But there is also restriction rules. There is also vast campaign of reforestation, and also there is other passes such as ecotourism and local products valorization. All these mechanisms are interesting, but the problem is the implementation of these policies. And I agree with my colleagues. And maybe the next slides. Next slide.
Can we have the next slide, please? Yes.
Yes, thank you. And with the two pictures, because you will see the diversity of mangrove systems. And you have, please, next with the two pictures of the mangrove. Yes, please, thank you. You have on the left a picture of the Guyana mangrove, and on the right a picture of the Casamance mangrove landscapes in Senegal. And it's obvious. You have not the same landscape. You have not the same territories. So we have to adapt policies to each context and to the specific demand and need of the local people, but they are also interconnected with the national and international policies. And we insist about this session is to foster the dialogue between science and policies, but also with civil societies. And we have to co-design knowledge, between academic and non-academic knowledge, to collect data from the fieldwork, as mentioned by Wanja, with an interdisciplinary and inclusive approaches. Data and evidences are very important so that we can have a good governance of mangrove. And I would like also to highlight the adverse effects of globalization and environmental policies, such as biodiversity offset under the in the context of blue carbon. Mangrove, one tree doesn't make a forest. These pictures, the following picture. It's
we lost you, Marie-Christine.
Can you show the picture?
Yes, and we just lost you in the last sentence.
Okay, thank you.
Can you just repeat the last sentence because it was disconnected? Or we'll lose you now.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
Better.
Yes. And you know that there has been in the last years, and there are more and more emphasis of the role of mangrove as a sink of carbon sequestration. And in the context of REDD+, you have a lot of campaign of reforestation. But I would like to put in evidence the fact that first, one tree doesn't make a forest. And the mangrove is not just a forest. And finally, we address all the SDG, not in a silo, but the interconnection between the fight under climate change mitigation, biodiversity conservation, equity, poverty elevation. And most of these vast campaigns, they do not respond to the ecological constraints. They are not economically rentable, but maybe overall, they are not equitable, and they led to mangrove grabbing and environmental injustice, notably to the detriment of the women who collect the mangrove. It has been underlined by Wanja and Tree, and really we have to be in favor of actions more efficient, more legitimate, more relevant for the co-benefits between SDGs. And that means to encourage nature-based solutions and community-based solutions without forgetting the role of vulnerable people such as women and young. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just taking note of your key messages there. I think you said a lot of things that are very relevant, like we shouldn't think in silos. We really have to look at the interconnection of the SDGs. We have to co-design the policies and the projects. I think this connects again also with what we heard from before. Are there any recommendations? I mean, we're here at the European Development Days, so I hope that many European policymakers are listening to us today. Are there any recommendations you would like to bring across to the EU, also for future programming? You know that we're still in the programming phase at the moment, so future policies and future programs are being designed today. So is there something you would like to bring across to those policymakers? Maybe we can, who wants to volunteer this time? Who's first? I mean, Wanja, okay. I see her hand up, yeah?
Yes, I would like to bring back the issue of multi-stakeholder involvement. This means multi-agency involvement as well. As we've heard, mangroves are not just about forests, so therefore working with ministries of forestry is not just the way to go. Also, you know, there's also talk about marine protected areas and how to have spatially protected areas. Community-based solutions need to be applied in that we need to ensure that communities are able to inform implementation. They know what species of mangroves existed in different places, which ones grow best. Even as science continues to test the soils and other things, we know that communities have a lot of knowledge. That knowledge needs to be included. We have to remember the issues of free, prior, and informed consent, that communities have to be in agreement with what you want to do. You know, whether they have chosen agriculture over restoration, they have to understand why restoration may be a better approach for them and why this may be more beneficial for them. So therefore, it's very, very important that the EU and other donors maintain these kind of things during their monitoring of projects? How are the local communities being involved? How are local agencies being involved? Are they just names? Are they just people who come for meetings, or are they really involved in the implementation of this project? I mean, flying in experts from the EU is important, but we need to think about capacity building. I mean, in the last few months, I've had a lot of students from the EU and a lot of researchers reach out to me about their projects on mangroves. However, the question is 30 minutes speaking to a local expert enough for them to use that information for implementation, or should they be really incorporating local expertise into their projects?
Thank you very much, Wanja. Very good points here. I think, I mean, these are recurring keywords like community-based and nature-based solutions are needed. So I think this is really a very strong message from our session today. Tree, would you like to add something from your point of view? What would you like to send as a wish list, let's say, or recommendations to the EU stakeholders?
Yeah, I think I fully agree with what Wanja mentioned about the multi-stakeholders, about the community-based approaches. So I think the point is how to turn things into practice. It is very much important. I have experiences working with some international experts, and when they come to us, they bring the project to us. And they, they come to us and they say, okay, they define the problem of the delta already, of the mangrove already, and they want to introduce a certain solutions for the mangrove forest in Vietnam. But the point is it the real case? I mean, the problems predefined by someone from outside tell the real story. So I think it is very much important to raise capacity of local people to be able to work internationally with experts elsewhere to tell their problems, and also to help them to work with the international projects to try to solve the problems by themselves. So I think back to the main point is the capacity building of local people, including the local residents, local government, and also with local scientists too.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Tree. And so capacity building is another key term I hear that we need to foster, and really listening also to the local expertise. I think, the capacity building is maybe two ways. It's not like only the experts from Europe coming to the field, but you have the local people living there. They know the local context so much more. And we've seen that the mangrove ecosystems, there's not the one. It's very different in different countries and different areas. So there's no one size fits all solution. So we really have to look at the differences. Marie-Christine, would you like to add something? We're coming closely to the end of our session. I think we have about 2 or 3 minutes left. Is there anything you would like to bring across as a key recommendation for the EU, or even you could even give an example of a success story as a good example that we could maybe keep in mind for future projects?
3 words: diversity, equity, solidarity, intragenerational, intergenerational equity. And yes, I follow very successful experiences in Senegal with a mechanism of certification, labelization, one village, one product. And it was a mechanism to qualify the capacity building of the women who were able to organize themselves to design a group of users and to produce cocoas, eco-friendly cocoas of good quality, and recognizing their know-how and their knowledge, and overall, you are right, their capacity building. It seems a very, very innovative solution to encourage and to promote all over the world. And OVOP, it is a label promoted by the JICA, the Japanese Cooperation. One village, one product.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Marie-Christine. So I think we have to make those good practices and success stories more visible. I think this is also a good way forward, because we need to promote those projects that go in the right direction and work well. We need to promote the multi-stakeholder approach. I'm completely convinced of that. We cannot do it on our own, and together we're much stronger. We have the better ideas. We have those ideas that better fit the local context. So, and I also know we have a lot of science. You said that several times. A lot of science is already available, and we have to work more on the implementation side. So I think this is also a message I would like to bring across, and community-based and nature-based solutions to better find the best solutions for those local contexts, and with better governance systems, hopefully. So thank you very much for this very, very interesting session. I feel like I'd like to visit those mangrove trees now. So hopefully when the pandemic allows me to travel again, I'd like to visit the deltas that you've mentioned in your presentations. It looks amazing. I've seen some documentaries in preparation of our session, and it's a world on its own. So I think it's an ecosystem I'd like to explore in the future. I wish you very good luck with your future research. Very much needed, and I hope that we all can contribute to the visibility of your research results and to the implementation of those recommendations. So thank you very much to the three of you, and I'd like to hand back to the studio. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you so much, Dorothy, for smoothly and seamlessly connecting a lot of moving parts there.